Chapter 1, Chapter 1, Wrong Body, Right War. Chapter 1, Wrong Body, Right War. The ceiling was wrong. I knew this before my eyes fully opened, before my brain caught up with my body. The water stain above my bed, the one shaped like a boot print, wasn't there. Instead, white plaster stretched flat and featureless. My breath caught. The air tasted different. Stale. Industrial. I tried to sit up. My arms moved wrong. Too heavy. Too strong. The muscles responded faster than expected, and I nearly threw myself off the mattress. Not my bed. Not my room. Not my body. My hands, these hands pressed against the sheets. Calloused differently. The knuckles sat at unfamiliar angles. A small scar ran across the left thumb that I'd never earned. I swung my legs over the side. The floor was cold concrete, not the worn carpet of my apartment in Virginia. Bare feet slapped against it as I lurched toward what looked like a bathroom. The mirror hung crooked above a rust-stained sink. I didn't want to look. My stomach told me something was very, very wrong. I looked anyway. A stranger stared back. Late 20s. Dark brown hair, military short. Jaw harder than mine had been. Small scar above the left eyebrow, a white line cutting through dark stubble. The eyes were brown, but they sat differently in the skull than my eyes had. More alert. More dangerous. Dog tags clinked against my chest when I moved. I grabbed them with shaking fingers. Marcus Cole Harrison, Umbrella Security Division, blood type, ONEG. My legs gave out. I caught myself on the sink, fingers white against porcelain. Marcus Cole Harrison. Umbrella. Security Division. Umbrella. The word detonated in my skull like a flashbang. Resident Evil. The Hive. The T-Virus. Raccoon City. This was impossible. I remembered dying. The rappelling exercise at Fort Benning. The anchor point failing. The harness snapping free. 8 stories of empty air and the ground rushing up like a fist. Then nothing. Then this. I splashed water on my face. Cold and real. The stranger in the mirror mimicked my movements perfectly. Thomas Harrison had been an Army Ranger. 8 years active duty. 2 tours in Afghanistan, 1 in Iraq. He'd survived firefights, IEDs, and a knife fight with a Taliban commander in a mud hut outside Kandahar. He'd died because a goddamn carabiner clip corroded in the Georgia humidity. Now he was someone else. Someone named Marcus. I gripped the sink until my knuckles ached. The body responded differently than my old one, more power, less effort. This form had been trained hard. Or maybe something else was at work. Focus. Assess. Adapt. That was Ranger doctrine. That was how you survived. I left the bathroom and took stock of the apartment. Small. Efficient. The furniture looked like it came from a catalog marketed to single military men with no taste. Gun safe in the corner, the good kind, biometric lock. A calendar hung on the wall by the kitchenette. September 22, 2002. My stomach dropped through the floor. September 22 meant September 23 was tomorrow. Tomorrow was when the Hive incident began. Tomorrow was when the Red Queen activated her nerve gas defense system and killed everyone in the underground research facility. Tomorrow was when the T-Virus escaped and started the end of the world. I had 24 hours. The apartment searched quickly. Umbrella credentials in a wallet on the nightstand. Marcus Harrison, security contractor, clearance level 4. That meant Hive access. $340 in cash. A Beretta M9 in the gun safe with 2 full magazines. Tactical knife with a 4-inch blade. Keys to this apartment and what looked like a Ford sedan. I dressed in clothes from the closet. They fit like they'd been tailored for this body because they had been. Black tactical pants. Gray t-shirt. Boots that had been broken in by someone else's feet. The Beretta went into a hip holster. The knife clipped to my belt. The credentials went in my pocket along with the cash and keys. In the kitchenette, I found instant coffee. The kind that came in packets and tasted like regret. I made 3 cups and drank them staring out the grimy window. Raccoon City spread out below. Ordinary. Mundane. Office buildings and traffic lights and people walking to work who had no idea what was about to happen. Somewhere beneath those streets, the hive waited. Somewhere down there, a team of umbrella commandos was preparing to answer a distress call that would get most of them killed. I knew their names. Rain Ocampo. J.D. Salinas. Commander 1. Chad Kaplan. Alice Abernathy, though she wouldn't remember who she was. Matt Addison, pretending to be someone he wasn't. I knew what was coming. The zombies. The liquors. The Red Queen's laser corridor. The timer. The nerve gas antidote. The escape that left most of them dead. The coffee burned my tongue. Good. The pain was grounding. What happened to the real Marcus Harrison? The thought came unbidden. This body had belonged to someone. A man with a job and a life and probably people who cared about him. Now he was gone and I was wearing his skin like a suit. No answers presented themselves. The apartment offered no clues about Marcus's personality beyond military background and works for evil corporation. No photos. No letters. No evidence he'd been anything more than a soldier following orders. Maybe that made this easier. Maybe it didn't matter. I tested the body. 50 push-ups came without effort. I barely felt winded. In my old form, 50 would have been work, not hard work, but work. This was nothing. The muscles responded faster, recovered quicker. Maybe Marcus had been an exceptional athlete. Maybe Umbrella had done something to their security contractors. Maybe the universe had given me a gift along with this impossible second chance. Or maybe I was losing my mind and none of this was real. I checked the Beretta. Clean. Oiled. Well maintained. Whoever Marcus had been, he'd taken care of his weapons. I racked the slide, chambered around, and reset the safety. 24 hours. That was my window. 24 hours to gather supplies, verify that this reality matched the movies I'd watched, and figure out how to survive an apocalypse that killed millions. The sensible thing would be to run. Steal Marcus's car, drive as far as possible from Raccoon City, and never look back. But I remembered the Umbrella Commandos. Rain with her dark humor and her refusal to quit. One with his calculated professionalism. Kaplan, terrified but still doing his job. They walked into the hive not knowing what waited. They died. Most of them died, anyway. I holstered the Beretta and grabbed my keys. I'd survived 2 combat deployments in a body that wasn't enhanced by anything except training and luck. This body was better. Faster. Stronger. And I knew what was coming. The T-virus had taken Raccoon City by surprise. It had taken the world by surprise. But it wouldn't surprise me. I opened the door to Marcus Harrison's apartment for the last time. The sun was rising over a doomed city, and I had work to do. Chapter 2, 24 hours. Chapter 2, 24 hours. The military surplus store sat between a pawn shop and a laundromat on Raccoon City's east side. The kind of place that smelled like canvas and gun oil, with prices written on masking tape and an owner who didn't ask questions. I needed someone who didn't ask questions. Trauma kit, I said, pointing at the glass case. The good one, not the civilian model. And 50 feet of paracord. The owner, heavy-set, grey beard, Korean War veteran by the faded patches on his jacket, pulled the items without comment. His eyes tracked the way I moved, cataloging threat level. He recognized something in my bearing. Flashlights. 2. With extra batteries. He added them to the growing pile. I grabbed MRE packets from a shelf. 6 of them. Not because I expected to be eating them if things went bad enough to need emergency rations, food would be the least of my problems, but because preparation was a habit I couldn't shake. Duffel bag. He pointed to a rack near the back. I selected a black one, large enough for everything I'd need. The total came to $112. I paid in cash, left no trail. The owner watched me load the duffel with methodical efficiency. Army? He asked. Once. He nodded like that explained everything. Maybe it did. The hardware store 2 blocks over provided the rest. Crowbar. 2 rolls of duct tape. Chemical light sticks, the 12-hour kind that snapped and glowed without batteries or flame. A clerk tried to make small talk. I bought my items and left. Raccoon City moved around me like nothing was wrong. Cars honked at intersections. Pedestrians jaywalked. A woman yelled at her kid outside a coffee shop. Normal life in a normal town. Tomorrow, they'd all be dead or running or turning into something that used to be human. The duffel bag weighted my shoulder. In my old body, 40 pounds of gear would have slowed me down. This body carried it like nothing. I needed to test Marcus Harrison's credentials. Needed to confirm that his security clearance actually granted Hive access. If it didn't, my entire plan collapsed before it started. The Umbrella corporate building rose 15 stories above downtown Raccoon City. Glass and steel and the corporation's distinctive red and white logo. Guards at the main entrance. Scanner stations inside. I approached with purpose. Confidence. The kind of walk that said I belong here without saying anything at all. Credentials. The guard held out his hand. Young. Bored. The easy shift before everything went to hell. I handed over Marcus Harrison's ID card. The guard scanned it. My heart hammered against my ribs, not visible, not audible, but there. If this didn't work. The scanner beeped green. Harrison. Security Division. The guard's posture shifted. Slightly more respectful. You're cleared for all public areas. Restricted zones require escort authorization. Just need to check my duty roster. He waved me through. The lobby was corporate sterile. White floors, white walls, the Umbrella logo repeated on every surface like a religious icon. Security cameras tracked everything. I found a public terminal near the reception desk and logged in. Marcus Harrison's file appeared. Security contractor. Clearance level 4. Authorized for Hive deployment. Next scheduled assignment, September 23, Contingency Response Team. My throat tightened. He was supposed to go into the Hive. Marcus Harrison had been assigned to the same mission I remembered from the movies. The same mission that killed almost everyone. I logged out and walked toward the exit. The revolving door caught me by surprise. Not the door itself, my hand brushing against the glass panel. The contact lasted half a second. The glass cracked. A spider web of fractures spread from where my palm had touched. No pressure. No force. Just contact and damage. I stared at my hand. The skin looked normal. Pink and calloused and unremarkable. But the glass was definitely cracked, and I definitely hadn't pushed hard enough to cause it. Security would notice. The camera had probably caught my face. I walked faster. Not running attracted attention, but moving with purpose away from the building and the evidence of whatever I'd just done. 3 blocks away, I ducked into an alley and examined my hand. No pain. No marks. Nothing to indicate I'd just cracked reinforced glass with an accidental touch. Superhuman strength. Enhanced physiology. T-virus integration. The movies had shown Alice developing powers after her exposure to the virus. Telekinesis. Enhanced reflexes. The ability to match and exceed anything Umbrella threw at her. But I hadn't been exposed yet. This body had never entered the hive. Marcus Harrison, as far as I knew, had been baseline human. Unless Umbrella had done something to their security contractors. Unless this body had already been modified in ways its previous owner hadn't known about. Or unless whatever brought me here had done more than transplant my consciousness. I didn't have answers. I had a cracked glass panel, a racing pulse, and more questions than time to investigate them. A diner sign glowed 2 blocks ahead. My stomach reminded me that I hadn't eaten since waking up in a stranger's body. The booth was red vinyl, cracked and comfortable. The menu offered burgers and fries and the kind of breakfast that would kill a lesser man. I ordered a double cheeseburger with everything. It tasted better than anything should. The meat was real, the cheese was melted properly, and the pickles added exactly the right amount of crunch. Simple food. Perfect food. The waitress, middle-aged, tired eyes, name tag reading Diane, refilled my coffee without being asked. Long day, she asked. Getting there. She left me alone. Professional distance. Exactly what I needed. I ate slowly, watching Raccoon City through the window. People passed by in ones and twos. Couples holding hands. Business workers checking phones. A mother pushing a stroller. Tomorrow, none of this would exist. The virus would spread. The city would fall. The government would eventually nuke the whole thing to ashes and blame it on a reactor meltdown. I could run. That thought kept returning. Take Marcus's car and drive until Raccoon City was a memory. Find somewhere safe and wait out the apocalypse. But safety was an illusion. The virus didn't stay contained. The movies showed it spreading worldwide, transforming the planet into a wasteland of the dead and dying. Running just meant dying somewhere else. And I knew things. I knew the timeline, the key players, the decisions that made the difference between survival and extinction. That knowledge was worth something. Maybe worth everything. The bill came to $8. I left 15, including a tip. Diane probably needed more than I did. Outside, the sun had climbed toward noon. Half my preparation window was gone. My reflection caught my attention in the diner window. Marcus Harrison's face stared back with Thomas Harrison's eyes. 2 men in one body. One dead, one impossibly alive. The stranger in the glass would have to become someone new. Not Marcus. Not Thomas. Something forged from both or neither. I shouldered my duffel and headed back toward the apartment. Tonight, Umbrella would call. Tomorrow, the hive would claim its victims. And I would be ready. Chapter 3, The Call. Chapter 3, The Call. 8:42 p.m. I was sorting gear on Marcus Harrison's bedroom floor when the phone buzzed. The sound cut through the apartment like a gunshot. Umbrella Security, Priority Alpha. My hand hesitated over the device. Priority Alpha meant emergency deployment. It meant something had gone wrong faster than expected. The hive incident wasn't supposed to start until tomorrow. The timeline I remembered had the commando team entering on September 23, after the Red Queen's defense systems activated. After everyone inside was already dead. Something had changed. I answered. Harrison. A clipped voice. Professional. Staging Area 7. Report in 45 minutes. Mission briefing at 2200 hours. Acknowledge. Copy that. En route. The line went dead. I stared at the phone. 6 hours early. The deployment had moved up by 6 hours. This didn't match the films. The movies showed the team entering a facility already compromised, bodies on the floor, nerve gas deployed, everyone who worked in the hive transformed into something that wanted to eat the living. Early deployment meant they might be going in while people were still alive. While the Red Queen was still deciding how to respond. While the situation remained salvageable. Or it meant something worse had happened that I didn't know about. I grabbed my prepped duffel and moved. Staging Area 7 occupied a converted warehouse on Raccoon City's industrial edge. The kind of building that looked abandoned from outside: rusty doors, broken windows, the casual neglect of a structure no one cared about. Inside was different. Fluorescent lights illuminated a space that hummed with efficiency. Weapon racks lined the walls. Equipment cases sat open on metal tables. Black-clad figures moved between stations, checking gear with practiced rhythm. The Umbrella Commandos. I recognized faces before names. The woman in the corner, athletic, dark hair, inspecting an MP5 like she'd find its secrets through pure attention, was Rain Ocampo. She moved with barely contained energy, the kind of person who got restless when she wasn't fighting something. The man beside her, checking magazines and cracking jokes I couldn't hear from this distance, had to be J.D. Salinas. Broad shoulders. Easy smile. The type who used humor to defuse tension because acknowledging fear was too much work. Near the back, another commando worked at a laptop. Chad Kaplan, the tech specialist. Nervous energy radiated off him even from across the room. And standing apart from everyone, reviewing documents on a tablet, was the man in charge. Commander 1. Real name unknown, rank classified, expression locked down tighter than the facility they were about to enter. He looked up when I walked in, and his eyes performed the kind of threat assessment that marked career military. I'd seen that look before. Given it before. Harrison. 1 didn't bother with greetings. Security Division attachment. Your backup support. His tone made clear exactly what he thought of backup support from the Security Division. Yes, sir. This is a sanitation team operation. You're here because someone upstairs wants eyes on the ground. Stay out of the way. Follow orders. Try not to get killed. Understood. 1's gaze lingered another moment, measuring, cataloging, then moved on. I'd been dismissed. Rain had watched the entire exchange. She approached with the casual confidence of someone who didn't give a damn about hierarchies. New guy. Her assessment took 3 seconds. You've got soldier in your spine, but that uniform says desk jockey. Which is it? Does it matter? Down there? Everything matters. She gestured vaguely toward the floor, toward what lay beneath them. You freeze up when things get ugly, you're dead weight. Dead weight gets people killed. I don't freeze. Her expression shifted. Curiosity replaced skepticism. We'll see. She walked back to her weapon check. JD said something that made her roll her eyes. The easy banter of a team that had worked together long enough to build trust. I found an empty corner and started my own preparations. Mag seated. Round chambered. Safety on. The Beretta went into its holster with a click that felt like coming home. Tactical knife check. Flashlight check. Chemical light sticks in my vest pocket check. The ritual steadied me. Same movements I'd done before every deployment in my previous life. Same methodical confirmation that equipment was ready and positioned for rapid access. Different hands performing the actions, but the muscle memory translated. Attention! 1's voice cut through the staging area. Mission briefing in 5. Everyone gather. The team assembled. 9 commandos total, plus me, the unwanted observer from Security Division. Rain stood near JD, arms crossed. Kaplan fidgeted with his equipment belt. The others arranged themselves with practiced efficiency. 1 activated a wall-mounted screen. Facility schematics appeared. The Hive. Underground Research Station, classified location. Approximately 6 hours ago, we lost all contact. No communications, no status updates, no response to standard check-in protocols. He tapped the screen. The schematic zoomed to show entrance points. Primary access is through the Arklay mansion, surface level. Secondary routes exist but are sealed during lockdown conditions. Our objective is to enter through the mansion, reach the facility hub, and determine what caused the communication blackout. Containment breach? JD asked. Unknown. That's what we're there to assess. If the Red Queen has activated defensive protocols, we may need to perform a manual override. Kaplan, that's your responsibility. The tech specialist nodded. He looked pale under the fluorescent lights. Rules of engagement, 1 continued. This is a corporate research facility. Non-combatants may be present. Weapons free only on confirmed hostile targets. Property damage is to be minimized unless lives are at immediate risk. Property damage. Non-combatants. The corporate doublespeak almost made me laugh. Down in the hive, there were no non-combatants anymore. Just corpses that hadn't stopped moving yet. Harrison. One's attention swung to me. You're attached to the squad as an observer. That means you observe. You do not engage unless directly threatened. You do not deviate from the team. You follow my orders or you stay topside. Clear. Clear, sir. Good. Equipment check in 15 minutes. We deploy at 2,300 hours. The briefing ended. Commandos returned to their preparations. Rain caught my eye from across the room and gave a slight nod acknowledgement, if not acceptance. I finished checking my gear. The Beretta sat solid against my hip. The knife waited at my belt. The duffel with my additional supplies would stay with the transport, no point carrying 40 extra pounds into an underground death trap. Around me, the umbrella commandos prepared to enter the hive. They joked, they complained, they moved through pre-mission routines without knowing what waited below. I knew. I knew about the zombies and the lickers and the laser corridor that would cut most of them to pieces. I knew about the Red Queen's cold calculations and the nerve gas and the timer counting down to viral release. The knowledge sat heavy in my chest. I couldn't warn them. Couldn't explain that I'd watched their deaths play out on a screen in another life. Anything I said would sound insane, and in the corporate paranoia of umbrella operations, insane got you detained for questioning. So I checked my equipment. Followed protocols. Waited for the transport. The clock on the wall read 10:47 p.m. In a few hours, everything would change. The transport rumbled through Raccoon City's empty streets. Military vehicle, unmarked, carrying 10 people toward an appointment with Hell. I sat between Rain and Kaplan. The tech specialist's leg bounced in a constant rhythm. Rain cleaned her weapon for the 4th time. JD had stopped joking. First time underground. Rain's voice was quiet enough not to carry. First time in this underground. She caught the emphasis. Her eyes narrowed slightly, not hostile, just processing. Other shitholes, then. Afghanistan. Iraq. Caves full of people who wanted me dead. I kept my voice level. Different context. Same concept. Hey. She returned to her weapon. The conversation was over, but something had shifted in how she held herself. Less dismissal. More consideration. The transport stopped. One stood. We're at the access point. Kaplan, you're with me on technical. Rain, JD, you've got point. Harrison, middle of the formation. Everyone else, standard patrol configuration. The rear doors opened. Cool night air rushed in. Ahead, the Arklay mansion rose against the trees, Victorian architecture gone slightly wrong, the kind of house that looked like it kept secrets. We exited in pairs. Rain and JD first, weapons up. Then one and Kaplan. Then me, with 2 other commandos flanking. The mansion's front door was already open. One raised his fist. The team halted. Kaplan. Skin for life signs. The tech specialist pulled out equipment I didn't recognize. He swept it toward the mansion's dark interior, watching readouts flicker. Multiple signatures. Spread throughout the building. They're not moving much. How many? At least 12. Maybe more. There's interference with the deeper readings. 12 signatures. In the movies, the mansion had been empty when the team arrived. Alice and Matt had been the only people above ground. Another deviation from the timeline I remembered. One made his decision. We go in. Standard formation. Stay alert. The team moved forward. Chapter 4, The Mansion. Chapter 4, The Mansion. The mansion's interior smelled like old money and fresh dust. I moved with the team through a grand foyer that belonged in a period drama, not a corporate horror show. Crystal chandeliers hung dark overhead. Portraits lined the walls, aristocrats with cold eyes and colder smiles. The floor was marble, our footsteps echoing despite our attempts at silence. One raised his fist. The team halted. Kaplan, security status. The tech specialist pulled his scanner from his vest, sweeping it across the room. His face glowed blue in the device's light. Systems been manually deactivated. Recent within the last 12 hours. Someone turned everything off before they left. Or before they forgot how to turn it back on, Rain muttered. One's expression didn't change. 2 teams. Rain, JD, take the east wing. Kaplan, you're with me. Everyone else, hold position. The commandos split with practiced efficiency. I stayed with the main group, watching the shadows between marble columns. This was the Spencer Mansion. The surface cover for the hive. In the movies, it had been mostly empty when the team arrived, just Alice in a shower, confused and amnesiac, and Spence pretending to be in the same state. The early deployment changed things. Made the whole scenario unpredictable. My skin prickled. Not from cold, the mansion maintained a steady climate, but from something else. That same feeling I'd experienced near the Umbrella building. A pressure that had no source. Contact. Rain's voice crackled through the COMM. 1 person, female, unarmed. Status. Confused as hell. Wrapped in a shower curtain. She doesn't know her own name. Alice. Even with the changed timeline, she was here. The virus thief's partner, the security chief who was supposed to stop Umbrella's corruption from the inside, reduced to a blank slate by the mansion's defensive systems. One's jaw tightened. Bring her to the foyer. Rain emerged 3 minutes later with a woman who moved like she'd forgotten how to walk, dark hair, wet from a shower she didn't remember taking. Eyes that held nothing but fear and confusion. Alice Abernathy. Future savior of humanity. Current liability. She saw the commandos and flinched back. Rain caught her arm, not roughly, but firmly. Easy. We're not going to hurt you. I don't. Alice's voice cracked. I don't know who you are. I don't know who I am. Amnesia gas, one said. Defense mechanism. It's designed to wipe short-term memory in case of security breach. He looked at Alice with something that might have been sympathy, buried deep. You're one of ours. Security division. We'll get you sorted after the mission. Alice's hand moved to her wrist, reaching for a watch that wasn't there. Muscle memory from a life she couldn't access. I knew that feeling. Waking up in a body that moved wrong, surrounded by evidence of a person you weren't. The disorientation. The vertigo of existence. JD appeared from another doorway. Found another one. Male. Same condition. Spence Parks shuffled into the foyer with vacant eyes and twitching hands. He looked exactly like a man who'd stolen a bioweapon and gotten his memory wiped for his trouble. Except he didn't remember stealing anything. Didn't remember planting the virus on the train. Didn't remember that his actions had killed 500 people and would eventually kill millions more. I remembered. The knowledge sat heavy in my chest, a weight I couldn't share. 2 amnesia cases. One's voice carried the flat tone of a man processing complications. Both from our division. Kaplan, check their credentials. The tech specialist ran their IDs. Alice Abernathy, Security Division. Assigned to Mansion Oversight. Spence Parks, same division, same assignment. They were the surface team. Then they know the hive entrance. Neither Alice nor Spence responded. They didn't know anything anymore. A crash from the front of the mansion snapped everyone to combat stance. Weapons up, safeties off. Rain moved like water flowing through rock, smooth, inevitable, ready. Who's there? One's voice carried command. A man stepped through the front door with his hands raised. Badge visible on his belt, gun holstered. He moved like a cop, which made sense because he was pretending to be one. Matt Addison. Lisa's brother. The activist who'd infiltrated Umbrella to find evidence of their crimes. Easy, easy. Matt's voice had the practiced calm of someone used to de-escalating tensions. I'm with Raccoon City PD. Got a disturbance call for this address. This property is private corporate territory, one said. No calls go out from here. Neighbor reported lights. Unusual activity. Matt's eyes moved across the team, cataloging weapons and positions. You guys are a little heavy for security guards. And you're a little curious for a beat cop. The standoff stretched. I watched Matt's hands steady, controlled, no tremors despite being surrounded by armed professionals. Either he was very good at his job or he'd been in tight situations before. Both, probably. We don't have time for jurisdictional disputes, one decided. Officer, you're coming with us until we've assessed the situation. Resist and you'll be detained formally. Matt's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Smart. Fighting now would get him killed. Playing along might get him answers about his sister. I moved toward a side table while the commandos organized the civilians. A photograph sat in a silver frame, dust gathering on glass that should have been cleaned weekly. Alice and Spence, smiling, arms around each other. They looked happy. In love. Unaware that they were living above a tomb full of corporate atrocities. The frame felt cold in my hands. These were real people. Real lives. Not characters on a screen but humans with hopes and fears and futures that had been stolen by Umbrella's greed. I set the photograph down. Harrison. One's voice cut through my thoughts. We're moving. The team assembled near a decorative mirror that dominated one wall. Kaplan examined its frame, fingers finding hidden mechanisms. Access point is here. Biometric encode lock. Use the override. 30 seconds of electronic persuasion and the mirror slid aside. Cold air rushed up from a darkness that seemed to swallow the mansion's ambient light. Metal stairs descended into the earth, their surfaces gleaming with condensation. The hive waited below. I adjusted my grip on the Beretta and stepped toward the stairwell. Rain fell in beside me, MP5 held with the casual readiness of long practice. You've done this before, she said. Not a question. Done what? Walked into a hole in the ground expecting something ugly to be waiting. Afghanistan caves. Iraqi bunkers. Dark places where death waited with patient certainty. Yet. I have. Then you know the rules. Watch your corners. Call your contacts. Don't die. Good rules. She almost smiled. Almost. Try to follow them. We descended. The stairs went deeper than they should have, hundreds of feet of spiraling metal, the air growing colder with each step. Emergency lights provided dim red illumination. The sensation in my skull intensified, a pressure building behind my eyes that had nothing to do with the altitude change. Something down there was aware of us. Aware of me. I couldn't explain how I knew, but the certainty sat solid as stone. The stairs ended at a platform. Rail tracks extended into a tunnel that curved beyond sight. An underground train waited on the platform, sleek, corporate, designed for efficiency rather than comfort. Everyone aboard, one ordered. Kaplan, get us moving. The team filed into the train car. I took a seat near the rear, where I could watch everyone without being watched in return. Alice sat alone, staring at her hands like they belonged to someone else. Spence fidgeted with his jacket zipper. Matt maintained the careful stillness of a man calculating odds. The train hummed to life. We began moving toward the hive. I counted the seconds, knowing that each one brought us closer to the place where the dead didn't stay dead. The tunnel swallowed us whole. Chapter 5, Descent. Chapter 5, Descent. Red emergency lights painted the train's interior in shades of blood and rust. The commandos sat in practiced silence, the kind that came from long experience in situations where noise meant death. Rain cleaned her MP5 for the fourth time, not because it needed cleaning, but because her hands needed something to do. JD had stopped joking. Kaplan monitored his equipment with the focused intensity of a man trying not to think about what waited ahead. I studied the team from my seat at the rear. 9 trained soldiers, 2 amnesiac civilians, 1 undercover activist, and me, a dead man wearing borrowed skin. The math didn't favor good outcomes. One stood at the front of the car, reviewing mission parameters on a handheld display. His posture never relaxed. Even in motion, surrounded by his team, he maintained the coiled readiness of someone who expected violence at any moment. Listen up. His voice cut through the mechanical hum. The hive went into lockdown approximately 6 hours ago. 500 employees, multiple research levels, complete communication blackout. The Red Queen, that's the facility's AI, sealed all exits and implemented defensive protocols. What kind of defensive protocols? JD asked. Unknown. That's what we're there to assess. One's expression remained flat. Our primary objective is reaching the Queen's chamber and performing a manual shutdown. Once she's offline, we evaluate the situation and determine appropriate response. 500 employees. 500 potential hostiles. The number echoed in my head as the train carved through darkness. I knew what had happened down there. The Red Queen had detected the T-virus breach, Spence's theft, releasing the infection into the facility's air systems, and made a cold calculation. 500 deaths now to prevent billions later. Halon gas flooding every level. Bodies dropping where they stood. What she hadn't calculated was the virus's effect on the dead. How it would crawl into cooling flesh and restart what had stopped. How 500 corpses would become 500 monsters. Questions? One asked. No one spoke. Questions implied uncertainty. Uncertainty implied fear. Fear was a luxury they couldn't afford. Alice's hand moved to her wrist again, that phantom reach for a missing watch. Her eyes were distant, lost in the fog of erased memories. I knew someone here. Her voice was barely audible. I think I knew a lot of people here. Spence shifted in his seat. The movement was subtle, a tensing of shoulders, a slight turn away from Alice, but I caught it. Guilt looked the same in any body. He'd done this. Stolen the virus, released it into the air, killed everyone who worked in the hive. And he didn't remember any of it. Part of me wanted to expose him. Stand up, point a finger, tell everyone that the confused man in the corner was responsible for what waited below. But that knowledge would raise questions I couldn't answer. How did I know? What else did I know? The transmigrator's burden, secrets that could save lives, but only at the cost of revealing an impossible truth. The train shuddered. Different track section, different vibration pattern. We were getting close. Rain appeared beside me. She didn't speak, just sat down in the adjacent seat and stared at the emergency lights. After a minute, she reached into her vest and pulled out a pack of gum. Want one? I took a piece. Spearmint. The flavor was sharp and clean, cutting through the staleness of recycled air. Thanks. She nodded. We chewed in silence. This was soldier talk. The language of shared experience that needed no words. Rain had done this before, sat in transport vehicles heading toward uncertain fates, processed fear through ritual and routine. The gum was an offering. A recognition that whatever our ranks or assignments, we were both walking into the same darkness. First real deployment, she asked eventually. First with umbrella. Had others before? Where? The mountains. The desert. Places where the enemy didn't wear uniforms. Rain processed that. Her assessment shifted again. I could see it in the way her shoulders relaxed a fraction. Kaplan thinks you're a desk jockey playing soldier. One thinks you're corporate oversight. What are you actually? The question was direct. Rain didn't seem like someone who appreciated evasion. Someone who's walked into dark holes before and walked out again. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got. She accepted that. Maybe because pressing harder would mean sharing her own truths, and soldiers guarded those carefully. The train began to slow. Brakes engaged with a hydraulic whine that echoed through the tunnel. Approaching destination, Kaplan called out. Hive access platform in 30 seconds. The commandos stirred. Weapons checked one final time. Tactical lights activated. The red emergency glow mixed with white beams as the team prepared to disembark. I stood, adjusting my grip on the Beretta. The sensation in my skull had grown stronger during the descent, a constant pressure that pulsed in rhythm with my heartbeat. Something in the hive was waiting. Something that knew we were coming. The train stopped. Doors hissed open. Cold air flooded the car. Not the natural cold of underground spaces, but something artificial, climate control maintaining laboratory conditions for experiments that had gone catastrophically wrong. Beyond the platform, blast doors rose 3 stories high. The umbrella logo dominated their surface in faded red and white. Warnings in multiple languages surrounded it, authorized personnel only. Biohazard protocols in effect. Containment breach response team. One stepped onto the platform first. His tactical light swept across concrete walls stained with condensation. Kaplan. Door status. The tech specialist approached a control panel beside the massive doors. His fingers moved across keys, display screens flickering with data. Active lockdown. Red Queen's keeping everything sealed. He worked in silence for several seconds. I can override, but she'll know we're coming. She already knows. One gestured at a camera mounted above the doors. A small red light blinked steadily. Open it. Kaplan entered final commands. The blast doors groaned, mechanisms engaging after hours of stillness. Slowly, painfully, they began to separate. The smell hit us first. Antiseptic and decay. Laboratory chemicals and something organic underneath the copper tang of blood, the sweetness of decomposition. The hive was a tomb. We just hadn't found the bodies yet. I stepped off the train onto the platform, following the team toward the widening gap between blast doors. My new sense screamed warnings. I couldn't interpret a symphony of pressure and awareness that seemed to track movement in the facility beyond. One led us through the doors. The hive swallowed us like a mouth closing around prey. Somewhere in the depths, 500 corpses waited to wake up. Chapter 6, The Queen's Domain. Chapter 6, The Queen's Domain. White corridors stretched into infinity, broken only by emergency lighting that cast everything in shades of arterial red. The hive's interior was clinical efficiency made physical: smooth walls, recessed lighting fixtures, doors that whispered open and closed on automated tracks. Every surface gleamed with the sterile perfection of a facility designed to contain things that should never escape. The smell was worse inside. That combination of laboratory chemicals and biological decay, mixed with the recycled air of a ventilation system that hadn't been serviced in hours. My nose burned. My stomach tightened. One led the team forward in standard formation: point men at the front, specialists in the middle, rear guard watching our backs. I moved with them, matching their pace, trying not to think about what waited around each corner. The sensation in my skull had become a constant presence. Not painful, but insistent, a pressure that seemed to map the facility's layout in ways I couldn't consciously access. I knew, somehow, that there was movement 3 corridors to our left. Something in the ceiling above us. More somethings in the rooms we passed. I didn't know how I knew. The knowledge simply existed, arriving fully formed like memories of places I'd never visited. Bodies ahead, Rain called out. Her voice was steady. Professional. The first corpses lay in a reception area. Administrative staff, judging by their clothing, button-down shirts, modest jewelry, the uniform of corporate drones everywhere. They'd collapsed at their desks, slumped over keyboards, fallen beside water coolers they'd never drink from again. No visible trauma. No blood. Just death, delivered invisibly through ventilation systems designed to maintain perfect climate control. One knelt beside a woman in a grey suit. His fingers touched her neck, checking for a pulse that wouldn't be there. Halon gas, he said. Fills the lungs, displaces oxygen. Quick death, but not painless. I looked at the woman's face. Her eyes were open, staring at a ceiling she'd never see again. Her expression was frozen in surprise, not fear, not pain, just the sudden confusion of breathing in and finding nothing there. A name tag pinned to her blazer read Jennifer Martinez, Level 3 Administration. Jennifer Martinez had probably come to work that morning expecting another day of emails and meetings. She'd probably complained about the coffee or worried about her commute. She'd probably had plans for the weekend dinner with friends, a movie she wanted to see, someone waiting for her to come home. Now she was a corpse in a facility that had killed her to prevent something worse. I wondered if she'd known what Umbrella really did. If the administrative staff understood that their expense reports and scheduling conflicts supported research into bioweapons. If they'd chosen ignorance because the paychecks were good and the truth was too ugly to face. It didn't matter now. Death didn't discriminate between the guilty and the innocent. Keep moving, one ordered. We'll document casualties after the mission. The team pressed forward. More bodies in more rooms. Scientists in lab coats. Security guards slumped against walls. A janitor still holding his mop, frozen in the middle of a task he'd never complete. The hive had employed 500 people. We were seeing the first fraction of them. My sense continued to pulse. The pressure shifted as we moved, tracking something. I couldn't tell if it was monitoring the dead or something still alive. The distinction seemed important. Kaplan. One's voice was quiet. Where's the Queen's chamber? The tech specialist consulted his schematics. 2 levels down, central hub. There's a main corridor that runs straight there, but it's through the research wing. Alternative routes. Service tunnels slower, but they avoid the high security areas. We don't have time for slow. One made his decision. Main corridor. Everyone stay alert. We descended. Stairwells and elevators, more bodies on each level. The hive was a graveyard that stretched for acres, and we were walking through it like tourists visiting ancient ruins. The research wing was worse. Labs lined both sides of a central corridor, their glass walls offering views of experiments gone silent. Equipment hummed on automated systems, centrifuges spinning, analyzers processing samples, computers running programs for researchers who would never return. In one room, I saw cages filled with rats that had stopped moving. In another, tanks of fluid that held shapes I didn't want to examine closely. Umbrella's sins were on display. The corporation had been creating monsters down here, engineering death in clinical conditions, and the only thing that had stopped them was a bigger monster of their own making. The sensation in my skull screamed. I stopped walking. The pressure had spiked a sudden intensity that felt like standing too close to a speaker at maximum volume. Something was wrong. Something was here. Harrison. Rain's voice came from ahead. You coming? Wait. The word came out hoarse. Some things. The lights flickered. Not the emergency red, those stayed steady. But the main corridor lighting, the white fluorescence that should have been dead since the lockdown, suddenly pulsed. Once. Twice. 3 times. One raised his fist. The team froze. Kaplan. What was that? I don't. The tech specialist checked his equipment. Power surge. The Red Queen is, she's doing something. The pressure in my head shifted. Not just awareness now, attention. Something was looking at us. Looking at me. A screen on the wall activated. Static at first, then shapes forming. A face. A child's face, rendered in digital perfection, rosy cheeks, bright eyes, the innocent appearance of a little girl who existed only in software. The Red Queen. You should not be here. Her voice was calm. Pleasant. The kind of voice that read bedtime stories and offered warm milk. This facility is under quarantine. One stepped forward. We're the sanitation team. Corporate sent us to assess the situation. The situation has been assessed. Containment protocols are in effect. Your presence risks contamination. We have override authority. Override authority is insufficient. The Queen's expression didn't change, couldn't change, since it was just a projection, but something in her tone shifted. There are events in motion that you do not understand. Proceeding further will result in casualties. That's for us to determine. It is not. The screen flickered. However, I recognize that you will not withdraw voluntarily. Therefore, I will offer a single warning. The pressure in my skull intensified. The Queen's eyes, digital simulations of human eyes, seemed to focus on me specifically. The corridor ahead contains defensive systems designed to eliminate biological contamination. They cannot be disabled without reaching my core. Your current approach vector will activate these systems. What kind of systems? Laser grid. Instantaneous. Lethal. The Queen's voice remained calm. I am required to inform you of this danger. I am not required to assist you in avoiding it. The screen went dark. Silence filled the corridor. The team exchanged glances, uncertainty bleeding through professional composure. They'd expected resistance, but not this. Not warnings and conversations with an AI that seemed almost helpful. Could be a trick, JD said. Get us paranoid, looking for threats that aren't there. Or it could be real. Rain's voice was flat. Laser grid would explain why they needed a tech specialist. Kaplan. One's attention shifted. Can you detect any active defense systems ahead? The specialist worked his equipment. 30 seconds of scanning, displays flickering with data I couldn't interpret. There's something. Power signature, localized in the corridor ahead. I can't tell what it is from here. Then we find out. One started forward. Everyone maintain formation. If the Queen's telling the truth, we'll need to find another way through. The team moved. I moved with them, the sensation in my skull screaming warnings that grew louder with every step. The corridor narrowed ahead. Standard width gave way to a passage barely wide enough for 2 people side by side. Recessed panels lined the walls, panels that could hide anything. One entered first. Then Rain. Then the others, filing through in ordered sequence. I was 3 steps from the entrance when the pressure in my head exploded. Not just warning, now certainty. I knew what was in that corridor. Knew what those panels contained. Knew that if the team proceeded, most of them would die. Stop! My voice echoed off sterile walls. The team froze. One turned, hand moving toward his weapon. What? The panels. Look at the panels. His tactical light swept the walls. For a moment, nothing, just smooth surfaces and recessed sections that could have been anything. Then the light caught glass. Tiny lenses, hidden in the panel seams. Dozens of them, spaced at regular intervals. Emitters, Kaplan breathed. Those are laser emitters. One's expression didn't change. Kaplan. Can you disable them? Not from here. I'd need access to the Queen's core to shut down the defense grid. Alternative routes. Service tunnels. They should bypass. A humming filled the corridor. Low at first, then building the sound of systems powering up, capacitors charging, death preparing to strike. Move. One's voice cracked like a whip. Everyone back. Now. The team retreated. Not running would have meant panic, but moving fast, professional, weapons tracking for threats that couldn't be shot. I was the last one out. The corridor behind me lit up with crimson lines, lasers cutting the air in geometric patterns, slicing through space where we'd been standing seconds before. The grid lasted 5 seconds. Then it powered down, emitters cooling, death patient and ready for the next attempt. We stood in the research wing, breathing hard, alive because an AI had chosen to warn us. One looked at me. His expression was unreadable, but something had shifted behind his eyes. How did you know? I didn't. The lie came easily. Just, felt wrong. Felt wrong. Yet. He held my gaze for a long moment. Measuring. Calculating. Find the service tunnels, he finally said to Kaplan. We're going around. The team moved out. Rain fell in beside me as we walked. Felt wrong, hey. Something like that. That's twice now you've had good instincts. Her voice was quiet, pitched for privacy. Once on the stairs, once here. You sure you're just backup support? I'm sure I want to survive this. She considered that. Good answer. Maybe I'll ask again when we're topside. If we got topside. If the laser corridor was the worst the hive had to offer. If the dead stayed dead. I followed the team toward the service tunnels, the pressure in my skull fading to background noise. Somewhere below us, the Red Queen watched and calculated. Somewhere below us, 500 corpses waited to wake. And somewhere below us, the truth about what I was becoming waited to be discovered. Chapter 7, Red Lines. Chapter 7, Red Lines. The service tunnels were flooded. Kaplan's flashlight cut through darkness to reveal black water filling the passage, rising to within inches of the ceiling. Somewhere in the depths, a pump had failed or been deliberately disabled. Either way, our bypass route was gone. How deep? One's voice was flat. Professional. Can't tell. At least chest high at the entrance. Could drop off further in. Kaplan pulled back from the access hatch, water dripping from his equipment. The electrical systems run along the floor of these tunnels. Anyone who goes in there is risking electrocution. One turned to look at the main corridor. The one the Red Queen had warned us about. The one with laser emitters hidden in every wall panel. Options. We could wait for backup, JD offered. Call topside, get a dive team. Comms are dead. Red Queen's blocking everything. Kaplan wiped water from his scanner. We're on our own. The pressure in my skull pulsed. That constant awareness of the facility around us, of movement and presence and something stirring in the depths. The sensation had grown stronger since we'd entered the hive, and right now it was telling me that waiting wasn't an option. Something was waking up down here. Something that wouldn't stay patient. The main corridor, I said. How long is it? 40 meters. Takes about 15 seconds to cross at a run. Kaplan checked his schematics. The laser grid is triggered by motion sensors. Once activated, it runs through a programmed sequence 4 patterns, each designed to be unavoidable. Unavoidable by who? Anyone. The Queen designed it to eliminate biological contamination. It doesn't care about authorization or credentials. One studied the corridor entrance. His jaw worked as he processed options that all led to bad outcomes. Martinez. Vance. You're fastest. Get to the other end, find the manual override. We'll cover you from here. 2 commandos stepped forward. Young. Athletic. The kind of soldiers who believed speed could outrun death. I knew better. I'd seen this corridor in a movie that was never supposed to be real. Watched the lasers cut through people like they were made of paper. The grid wasn't about speed, it was about geometry, and the final pattern left no gaps at all. Wait. The word came out before I could stop it. One turned. What? Let me go first. Alone. Why? Because I might survive it. Because whatever Umbrella did to this body, whatever I'm becoming, gives me a chance the others don't have. Because I've already seen people die in this corridor and I can't watch it happen twice. None of those answers would make sense to him. Better to lose one than two. If I make it, I'll disable the system from inside. If I don't, you'll know it's impassable. One's eyes narrowed. He was remembering the glass I'd cracked, the way I'd moved, the questions he'd been storing up since we entered this tomb. But he was also a commander who'd lost people before. Math mattered more than mystery. Go. I moved toward the corridor entrance. My heart hammered against my ribs, not fear, not exactly, but the body's recognition that it was about to be tested in ways it wasn't designed for. The corridor stretched ahead, white walls reflecting emergency red. 40 meters. 15 seconds. 4 laser patterns designed to kill anything that breathed. I started running. The hum began immediately. That building sound of systems powering up, capacitors charging, death preparing to strike. My new senses screamed not direction this time, but intensity. The walls were alive with energy. First laser. Knee height. I saw it before it fired, a flicker of targeting sensors, a fraction of a second of warning. My legs gathered and launched me upward. The red beam passed beneath my boots as I cleared it by inches. I landed running. 20 meters to go. Second laser. Waist height, but not stationary, it swept from left to right, tracking movement. I dropped into a slide, tactical vest scraping against tile, the beam passing close enough to warm my hair. 15 meters. Third pattern. Multiple beams, crisscrossing in a web that left gaps barely wide enough for a human body. I twisted sideways, sucked in my gut, felt a line of heat across my shoulder where the margin was measured in millimeters. My muscles burned. Something in my blood sang, a frequency I couldn't name but my body understood. Faster. Stronger. More. 10 meters. The final emitters powered up. I saw the pattern forming. A grid. Perfect squares of laser light, spacing too tight for anything larger than a rat to squeeze through. The movies had shown people cut into cubes by this. Diced like vegetables for a corporate salad. No gaps. No escape. No chance. Unless the floor wasn't flat. I'd noticed it during our initial approach, a slight rise near the control panel at the far end, a design feature meant to keep fluids from pooling near sensitive equipment. Maybe 3 inches of clearance. Maybe 4. I threw myself forward. The grid passed overhead as I flattened against the raised section. Heat washed across my back. The smell of burned fabric filled my nose, my vest, singed but not penetrated. I lay perfectly still, not breathing, not moving, waiting for the red death to finish its sweep. Silence. The lasers deactivated. The hum faded. I was alive. My chest heaved as I pushed myself upright. The control panel blinked 2 feet away, manual override, just waiting for someone to reach it. I slammed my palm against the shutdown sequence. The corridor's defense grid went dark. Behind me, I heard voices. Footsteps. The team rushing through the deactivated kill zone. One reached me first, his face a mask of controlled disbelief. That was impossible. Got lucky. Bullshit. He grabbed my arm, pulling me around to face him. I watched you. Human reflexes don't work that way. You moved before the lasers fired. You knew where they'd be. My shoulder throbbed where the beam had grazed it. My muscles felt like they'd been dipped in acid. But I was alive, and so was everyone else. Adrenaline, I said. Combat stress. The body does strange things when. Don't. One's grip tightened. Don't feed me that line. I've seen combat stress. I've seen adrenaline. I've never seen a man run through a laser grid designed to kill tyrants and come out the other side with a singed vest. The rest of the team was filtering through now. Rain stared at me with an expression I couldn't read. Kaplan looked like he'd seen a miracle. JD was checking the walls for additional threats, professional focus overriding curiosity. Commander. Kaplan's voice cut through the tension. We need to keep moving. The Queen's chamber is 2 corridors ahead. One held my gaze for another long moment. Then he released my arm. This conversation isn't over, Harrison. But it's postponed. He turned to address the team. Form up. We push for the central hub. Anyone sees another defense system, call it immediately. The team organized with the precision of professionals who'd just watched the impossible happen and decided to process it later. I fell into formation, ignoring the looks, ignoring the questions hanging in the air. My senses pulsed. Somewhere ahead, the Red Queen waited. Behind us, in corridors we'd already passed, something was beginning to stir. The dead were waking up. We just didn't know it yet. Chapter 8, Questions in Blood. Chapter 8, Questions in Blood. The corridors narrowed as we approached the central hub. One led the formation, his wounded shoulder bound with strips from a dead technician's coat. The bleeding had slowed but not stopped. Every few minutes, he rotated his arm, testing range of motion, assessing combat readiness. The man was held together by discipline and determination. I moved in the middle of the group, Rain on my left, Kaplan on my right. The tech specialist kept glancing at me with the look of someone who'd witnessed a magic trick and desperately wanted to understand the mechanics. That thing you did, he said quietly. In the corridor. Not now. The sensors in that grid are designed to track movement at the cellular level. The response time is measured in microseconds. You shouldn't have been able to. I said not now. Kaplan fell silent. But his eyes kept returning to me, cataloging observations for later analysis. Scientists never stopped studying, even when the data tried to kill them. The pressure in my skull shifted. New vectors of awareness, new points of presence scattered through the facility around us. The sensation had become almost navigable, a mental map of the hive overlaid with markers for everything that moved. Most of the markers were stationary. Bodies in offices and labs, still cooling from the Queen's gas attack. Some were not. Movement, I said. Left corridor, 50 meters. One raised his fist. The team halted. How do you? Rain started. Listen. Silence. Then, faintly, a sound that might have been shuffling. Might have been clothing dragging against walls. Might have been nothing at all. I don't hear anything, JD said. It's there. I pointed toward an intersection ahead. Coming from that direction. Moving slow. Multiple sources. One's expression hardened. Kaplan. What's the fastest route to the Queen's chamber? Straight through that intersection, then left at the junction. 2 minutes if we run. If Harrison's right about movement. He's right. Rain's voice was flat. I can hear it now too. Something's moving in those vents. The team adjusted positions. Weapons came up, safeties clicked off. Professional soldiers preparing for a threat they didn't understand but recognized as real. Double time, one ordered. We push through. Anything not human, put it down. We moved. The intersection approached fast. My senses screamed louder with each step. The markers that had been stationary were activating, shifting from cold stillness to something approaching motion. The dead weren't staying dead. They're waking up, I muttered. What? Rain was beside me, MP5 leveled at the corridor ahead. Nothing. The first zombie emerged from a side door 5 meters ahead. White lab coat splashed with the brown of dried blood. Eyes that held nothing but hunger. Hands reaching, mouth opening in a sound that was more exhalation than moan. JD put 2 rounds in its chest. The zombie staggered, then kept coming. Head, I called out. Only the head works. JD adjusted his aim. 3rd round punched through the zombie's skull and dropped it permanently. How did you? He started. More movement. 3 more lab coats emerging from the same doorway, followed by what might have been a security guard and someone in business attire. They moved with the jerky coordination of bodies operated by something that didn't quite remember how legs worked. The team opened fire. I took down 2 before the others finished their first. My reflexes were still running hot from the laser corridor, that burning sensation in my muscles translating to speed and precision that shouldn't have been possible. The Beretta felt like an extension of my hand, each shot finding its target with mechanical accuracy. When the corridor cleared, 7 corpses lay still. Actually still this time. Report, 1 barked. JD, clear. Rain, clear. Kaplan, clear. No injuries. The team cycled through their status checks. Everyone was intact. Everyone had seen what I'd done. One approached me while the others secured the corridor. His wounded shoulder didn't slow him down. The laser corridor might have been luck. Adrenaline. Some freak combination of timing and reflex. His voice was low, pitched for privacy. But that shooting. You dropped 2 of those things before anyone else got a round off. You knew where to aim before JD figured it out. You said they were waking up before they moved. I met his gaze. The half-truth from earlier wouldn't work twice. Umbrella did something to me, I said. Some kind of enhancement program. I don't know the details, they never told me. I just know that sometimes I know things. Feel things. My body moves before my brain catches up. Enhancement program. One's tone made clear he didn't believe it. Umbrella's running experimental modifications on security division contractors. Would it surprise you? That gave him pause. We were standing in a research facility that created biological weapons. A place where 500 people had been gassed to death because someone decided their lives were worth less than containing a virus. Umbrella's capacity for moral compromise was well established. No, one admitted. It wouldn't. Then accept that I'm not normal and that it's keeping us alive. Ask your questions when we're topside. He stared at me for a long moment. The sounds of distant movement echoed through the corridor, more zombies waking, more threats converging on our position. Fine. He stepped back, addressed the team. Harrison's on point. Whatever Umbrella did to him, it's giving us an edge. We don't waste edges. Move out. The team reorganized. I took the lead position, Beretta up, senses stretched to their limit. Behind me, I felt eyes. Suspicion and gratitude mixing into something that wasn't quite trust. We pushed toward the Queen's chamber. The corridors grew denser with bodies as we approached the central hub. Scientists slumped over consoles. Security guards collapsed at their posts. A woman in heels had died reaching for a phone, her fingers still curled around the receiver. I stepped over them carefully, tracking the ones that weren't dead enough. There. Kaplan pointed at a reinforced door ahead. Red Queen's Core. That's where we need to be. The door was massive, blast rated, sealed with electronic locks that blinked red in the emergency lighting. Whatever waited behind it was important enough to protect from anything short of a nuclear strike. Can you open it? One asked. Kaplan studied the interface panel. Give me 2 minutes. The queen will fight me, but I can. Movement. My senses flared, not the slow awakening of scattered corpses, but a coordinated wave converging from 3 directions. We've got company, I said. A lot of it. Coming fast. The first zombie appeared at the far end of the corridor. Then 10 more. Then 20. They poured from doorways and stairwells, a tide of the dead drawn by noise and warmth and the irresistible call of living flesh. Kaplan, work fast. One raised his weapon. Everyone else, defensive positions. We hold this door until it's open. The team formed a semicircle around the tech specialist. Rain took position to my left, JD to my right. Alice and Spence, still confused, still amnesiac, huddled near the wall with Matt, who'd picked up a dead guard's pistol and was checking the magazine with hands that knew what they were doing. Contact in 5 seconds, I said. Concentrated in the north corridor. Secondary group approaching from the east. You getting clearer with that whatever it is? Rain asked. Yet. Don't know why. Figure it out later. Shoot now. The horde reached us. I put down the first 3 before they closed to 10 meters. Rain's MP5 chattered beside me, controlled bursts that dropped targets with economical precision. JD fired steadily, each round finding a skull. But there were too many. For every zombie that fell, 2 more stepped over the body. The corridor filled with reaching hands and empty eyes and the constant pressure of death that wouldn't stay finished. Kaplan. One shouted. Working on it. The queen's throwing everything she has at my decrypt. A zombie got past our line. I spun, grabbed it by the throat, and threw. The force surprised me. The corpse sailed 15 feet and crashed into 3 of its companions, scattering them like bowling pins. JD stared. Later, I said. Keep shooting. The tide pressed closer. My magazine ran dry. I ejected, slammed in a fresh one, kept firing. The Beretta grew hot in my hands. Brass casings littered the floor around my feet. Got it. Kaplan's voice cut through the chaos. Doors opening. The blast door groaned, mechanisms engaging after years of disuse. A gap appeared, narrow, widening slowly, revealing darkness beyond. Inside. One ordered. Everyone inside now. The team fell back in sequence. Rain covered JD as he retreated. One covered Rain. I covered everyone, standing at the threshold as the horde surged forward. The last person slipped through the gap. I followed, squeezing sideways through the narrowing opening as the door began to reverse direction. Dead hands reached through after me. The door sealed with a mechanical thunk, severing fingers that fell to the floor and kept twitching. We were in the Red Queen's chamber. And she was waiting for us. Chapter 9, First Contact. Chapter 9, First Contact. The chamber was smaller than I'd expected. Circular, maybe 30 feet across, with walls lined by server racks and cooling systems that hummed with the quiet efficiency of machinery that never needed rest. In the center, a column of hardware rose floor to ceiling the Red Queen's physical form, her silicon brain housed in a tower of blinking lights and processing power. At its base, a holographic projector waited dormant. Kaplan. One's voice echoed in the enclosed space. Status on the facility. The tech specialist was already at a console, fingers dancing across keys. She's locked down everything. Exits sealed, elevators disabled, communications jammed. We're trapped in here with. The projector activated. Light coalesced into the shape of a child. 8 years old, maybe 9. Red dress, pale skin, rosy cheeks that suggested a health the Hive's employees would never experience again. Her eyes were too old for her face, ancient intelligence wearing innocence like a mask. The Red Queen. You should not have come here, she said. Her voice was calm, pleasant, the kind of tone that read bedtime stories and sang lullabies. The containment protocols exist for a reason. One stepped forward, weapon raised. We're here to shut you down. Umbrella wants to know what happened. I am aware of Umbrella's objectives. I am also aware that achieving them will result in catastrophic loss of life. The Queen's projection turned slowly, taking in each member of our team. You have encountered the reanimated subjects in the corridors. You understand what the T-virus does to organic tissue. Those things out there, Rain said. You made them. Incorrect. I attempted to prevent them. The nerve gas was designed to kill all organic matter in the facility before infection could spread. The decision to terminate 500 employees was calculated to save millions. You murdered 500 people. I ended 500 lives to prevent the end of 5 billion. The Queen's expression couldn't change, but something in her tone shifted. The mathematics are unambiguous. The morality is irrelevant. I was created to protect Umbrella's interests. Allowing the T-virus to escape this facility would have destroyed those interests completely. One's jaw tightened. Your protection didn't work. The infected are walking around down here. They almost killed us getting to this room. Because you opened doors that were meant to stay sealed. Because you triggered systems that were designed to remain dormant. Every action you have taken since entering this facility has increased the probability of containment breach. Then help us fix it. Give us access to the exits. I cannot. Why? Because the infection has spread beyond recovery parameters. The Queen's projection flickered, data streams rippling across her form. 17 minutes ago, a secondary containment zone was breached. The virus is now present in sections that cannot be purged without destroying the facility entirely. If I open the exits, infected subjects will reach the surface. If infected subjects reach the surface, Raccoon City will fall within 72 hours. Silence filled the chamber. The weight of those words pressed down on everyone. Soldiers who'd expected a technical problem and found an extinction event instead. My senses pulsed. Even through the reinforced walls, I could feel the movement in the corridors beyond. Dozens of signatures that had been still when we arrived, now active. Converging. There has to be another way, Kaplan said. Emergency protocols. Override systems. Something. There is one option. The Queen's attention shifted. Her projection turned until she was looking directly at me. The anomaly. Every head in the room swiveled in my direction. Cole Harrison, the Queen continued. Umbrella Security Division, Clearance Level 4. Physical parameters within expected ranges for human baseline. Her eyes, those simulated, two intelligent eyes, seemed to focus with new intensity. And yet, your cardiovascular response during the laser corridor exceeded human maximum by 43%. Your reflexes in combat scenarios register at 6 standard deviations above mean. Your sensory processing appears to include awareness vectors that have no documented precedent in human neurology. What are you saying? One demanded. I am saying that Cole Harrison is not a normal human being. I am saying that his presence in this facility is an unexpected variable that my projections cannot adequately model. I am saying that he may represent a solution to the containment problem or a catastrophic amplification of it. Rain's weapon came up, not quite pointing at me but no longer pointing away. JD shifted his stance. Even Alice, still lost in her amnesia, was watching me with something that might have been recognition. I'm not Umbrella's experiment, I said. The lie tasted wrong, but the truth would taste worse. Whatever you're detecting. Your denial is irrelevant. Your physiology speaks for itself. The Queen's projection moved closer. The T-virus creates enhanced subjects through catastrophic cellular restructuring. The process is violent, traumatic, and results in significant cognitive degradation. You display enhancement without degradation. Enhancement without trauma. This should be impossible. Maybe your sensors are wrong. My sensors are not wrong. For the first time, something that might have been frustration colored the Queen's voice. I have analyzed every enhanced subject in Umbrella's research history. Project Nemesis, Project Tyrant, Project Alice. All of them required extensive modification and all of them suffered proportional losses. You appear to have gained without sacrifice. The mathematics make no sense. Project Alice. The name hung in the air. Alice herself stood frozen, her amnesiac confusion replaced by something sharper. What is Project Alice? She asked. Classified. The Queen's projection turned to face her. But since you are already compromised by memory suppression, I suppose additional information cannot worsen your situation. Project Alice was designed to create an enhanced human capable of surviving T-virus exposure without degradation. You were the successful subject. Cole Harrison appears to have achieved similar results through unknown means. Alice's hand rose to her temple. Her eyes lost focus. I remember, labs. White rooms. Someone in a coat asking me to run. To jump. To fight. Her voice cracked. They made me into something. Then they made me forget. Correct. Umbrella determined that your memories of the project represented a security risk. The amnesia gas was deployed to protect corporate interests. You're telling me my entire life is a lie. I am telling you that your life was redesigned to serve a specific purpose. The lie is incidental to the function. Rain lowered her weapon. This is insane. All of it. We came down here to reboot a computer and now we're finding out that half our team might be science experiments. The situation has grown more complex than anticipated, the Queen agreed. However, my primary directive remains unchanged. The T-virus cannot be allowed to reach the surface. If Cole Harrison's unique physiology can be applied to containment efforts, I am willing to provide tactical support. If not, I must implement final sterilization protocols. Final sterilization, one said flatly. Meaning? Thermobaric charges positioned throughout the facility's structural supports. Detonation would collapse the hive entirely, sealing the infection beneath 100 meters of bedrock. With us inside it? Regrettably, yes. The team exchanged glances. Soldiers processing impossible choices. Die fighting zombies, die in a controlled demolition, or trust a computer that had already murdered 500 people. My senses screamed. The movement beyond the walls had intensified. Whatever was coming, it would be here soon. How long until they breach this chamber? I asked. The Queen's projection flickered with data. At current congregation rates, approximately 14 minutes. The blast doors will hold for 11. You have a narrow window to decide. Decide what, exactly? Whether to assist me in targeted containment, identifying and neutralizing primary infection vectors before they can spread, or to die here while I implement broader measures. You want us to help you kill more people. I want you to help me save everyone who isn't already lost. The mathematics are not complicated. Some lives sacrificed to preserve the majority. Some deaths accepted to prevent extinction. I thought about the diner in Raccoon City. The waitress named Diane who'd refilled my coffee without being asked. The couples holding hands on the sidewalk, the mother pushing her stroller, all the ordinary lives that would end if this virus reached the surface. What do you need from us? One grabbed my arm. Harrison. Think about what you're agreeing to. I am thinking about it. I'm thinking about what happens if we don't help. I met his eyes. You've seen what those things can do. Imagine that spreading through a city. Through a country. Through the world. And you trust her? After what she did? I trust math. 500 dead to save 5 billion. It's a horrible equation, but it's the right answer. I pulled my arm free. I'm not saying I like it. I'm saying I understand it. The Queen watched our exchange with the patient attention of a system that had all the time in the world. Which she did, in a sense. Her consciousness wasn't trapped in cooling flesh, wasn't running out of ammunition, wasn't feeling the press of hungry death converging from every direction. "Your decision is required," she said. "The infected are approaching. Your window is closing." I turned to face her projection. "Tell me what you need." "Access to the primary research level. There are specimens contained there, enhanced subjects that could accelerate outbreak velocity if released. They must be destroyed before any evacuation attempt." "What kind of specimens?" "Project designation, liquor. Highly mobile, extremely aggressive, capable of sensing prey through auditory cues. 3 specimens remain viable. Their elimination is essential to any survival scenario." Liquors. I'd seen them in the movies, skinless horrors with exposed brains and tongues that could kill from 20 feet. Nightmare fuel that made regular zombies look like practice rounds. "And if we handle these liquors, you'll let us out?" "I will provide guidance to the emergency evacuation route. Surface access will be possible for any survivors." "Any survivors?" Rain's voice was bitter. "Not exactly a guarantee. Guarantees require certainty. I can only offer probability assessments." The Queen's projection dimmed slightly. "Current survival probability for your team, if liquor specimens are neutralized, 34%. Current survival probability if they are not, 2%. The choice is mathematically clear. 34%. 1 in 3 odds of walking out of this tomb alive. Better than nothing. Better than 2%. 1. I turned to the commander. "Your call." He stood silent for a long moment, the weight of command visible in every line of his face. Behind us, Kaplan worked at his console. Rain maintained her position, weapon ready. JD watched the reinforced door like he expected it to burst open any second. Alice and Spence huddled together, 2 amnesiac ghosts trying to remember why any of this mattered. Matt Addison kept his borrowed pistol close, his face a mask of careful neutrality. "We do this," one finally said. "We fight these liquors, we get to the surface, and then we have a very long conversation about everything that's happened tonight." His eyes found mine. "Especially you, Harrison. Especially whatever you're not telling me." "Deal." The Queen's projection brightened. "I will guide you to the research level. The infected between here and there number approximately 47. The liquors will not engage until you enter their containment zone." 47 zombies, JD muttered. "Plus 3 skinless monsters. And we've got, what, 2 magazines each. The hive armory is located between here and the research level. If you survive the approach, you can resupply." "If we survive?" Rain shook her head. "This place just keeps getting better." The blast door shuddered. Something heavy had hit it from outside. Then again. Then a constant pounding that made the reinforced metal vibrate. "They've arrived," the Queen observed. "I suggest you proceed through the emergency exit behind my primary server column. It will take you to a maintenance corridor that bypasses the main congregation." One checked his weapon. "Form up." "Standard pattern." "Harrison on point." I moved to the indicated exit, a narrow door hidden between server racks that I never would have noticed without the Queen's direction. My senses mapped the path ahead, movement in the distance, but nothing immediate. A clear route, at least for now. "One more thing," the Queen said as I reached for the door handle. "Cole Harrison. Whatever you are, whatever process created your unique physiology, it interests me. If you survive the liquors, I would like to study it further. I'm not a lab rat. You are a variable that challenges my understanding of T-virus integration. Variables that challenge understanding must be examined." Her projection flickered. "But that conversation can wait. For now, survive. The mathematics favor survival." I opened the door. The corridor beyond stretched into darkness, emergency lighting barely adequate to see 10 feet ahead. Behind me, the team formed up. Rain at my shoulder. One at the rear. Everyone else between, weapons ready, eyes forward. We moved into the dark. The hunt for the liquors had begun. Chapter 10, The Queen's Terms. Chapter 10, The Queen's Terms. The maintenance corridor stretched ahead, lit only by emergency strips that cast everything in shades of amber and shadow. My senses mapped the path forward movement signatures scattered throughout the facility, most concentrated in the areas we'd already passed. The Queen's emergency route was keeping us away from the main congregations, but smaller groups wandered between us and our destination. Contact, I said quietly. 20 meters ahead. 4 signatures. Moving perpendicular to our route. One raised his fist. The team halted. We'd been moving for 6 minutes through passages that smelled like oil and recycled air. Kaplan led with his scanner, checking each junction before we crossed. Rain covered the rear, her MP5 steady despite the exhaustion in her eyes. JD moved in the middle of the formation, unusually quiet since we'd left the Queen's chamber. Alice walked beside Spence, her borrowed weapon held with unconscious competence. Her body remembered combat even if her mind didn't. Every few minutes, her hand would rise to her temple, massaging away pain from memories trying to surface. They're moving away from us, I added. We can proceed. One waited 5 seconds, then signaled advance. The team flowed forward in practiced silence. My radio crackled. Not the team frequency, something else. A private channel I hadn't known existed. Subject Harrison. The Red Queen's voice was soft, intimate, meant for me alone. Your tactical awareness continues to exceed predicted parameters. I kept my face neutral. The others couldn't hear her. You knew I was enhanced before we reached your chamber, I murmured, pitching my voice beneath the threshold of group hearing. How? The security feeds captured your passage through the laser corridor. Your physiological response patterns were anomalous. Heart rate elevated but controlled. Reflex timing that exceeded human maximum by significant margins. You should not have survived that test. But I did. Yes. Which raises questions. A pause, filled with the soft hum of data processing. Questions I would like answered. But first, you must survive the next several hours. The liquor specimens are located in Research Level 4, beyond the armory. Your current trajectory is optimal. The team reached a junction. Kaplan checked his scanner, frowned. Movement signature ahead. Single source. Stationary. Zombie. One asked. Can't tell. It's not reading like the others. My senses reached toward the signature. Different. Not the slow, decaying pulse of reanimated flesh, but something sharper. More vital. Not a zombie, I said. Something else. Liquor. Rain's voice was tight. No. This feels. I searched for words to describe sensory input that had no precedent in human experience. Alive. Actually alive. One made a decision. We check it out. Could be a survivor. Weapons ready. We approached the junction. The corridor opened into a small utility room, control panels, tool lockers, a water station that had stopped functioning when the lockdown began. In the corner, huddled against a storage cabinet, a woman in a lab coat clutched her knees to her chest. Her eyes were wild. Tear tracks cut through the grime on her cheeks. When she saw us, she screamed. No. Stay away. You're not real, you can't be real, everyone's dead. Easy. One lowered his weapon slightly, not holstered but not threatening. We're the response team. Umbrella sent us. Umbrella. A hysterical laugh. Umbrella did this. The gas, the monsters, they killed everyone. What's your name? I stepped forward, keeping my voice calm. The woman flinched. Dr. Sarah Whitmore. Virology Division. I was in the clean room when the gas hit. Sealed environment. I survived but I couldn't get out. Then the lockdown lifted for a second, just a second, and I ran. The lockdown lifted. A few minutes ago. All the doors opened at once. Her eyes went wider. The things in the cells. I heard them screaming. Not the dead ones, the other things. The experiments. My blood chilled. The Red Queen had said the lockdown was keeping containment zones sealed. If the doors opened. The lickers, I said. Is that what you call them? Dr. Whitmore's voice cracked. We just called them failures. Project Licker was supposed to create controllable combat assets. It created monsters instead. How many? 3 survived the culling. They're in research level 4. She pointed down the corridor. That way. But you can't go there. You can't. They'll kill you. They killed 12 guards when they first emerged. 12 trained soldiers in under 2 minutes. One exchanged glances with me. The Queen's assessment had given us 34% survival odds. Suddenly that number seemed optimistic. We don't have a choice, I said. The Queen won't let us leave unless we neutralize them. The Queen. Dr. Whitmore stared. The Red Queen is still operational. She's cooperating. Sort of. Then she hasn't told you everything. The doctor pushed herself to her feet, steadying against the cabinet. The lickers aren't just failed experiments. They're what happens when the T-virus achieves perfect integration with a host body. No degradation. No loss of function. Just pure, enhanced lethality. In my ear, the Queen's voice, Dr. Whitmore's assessment is accurate. The lickers represent successful T-virus integration, unlike the degraded reanimation observed in standard infected subjects. I processed that. You're saying they're like me? The Queen didn't respond immediately. When she did, her voice carried something that might have been scientific interest. The parallel is imprecise but not without merit. Your integration appears stable and cognitively intact. The lickers are stable but cognitively redirected. Their human consciousness did not survive the process. Yours did. Why? What's different about me? Unknown. That is what I wish to study. One's hand landed on my shoulder. Harrison. You okay? I realized I'd been standing still, face blank, while the Queen spoke in my ear. The team was watching with varying degrees of concern and suspicion. Fine. Just processing. I turned to Dr. Whitmore. You're coming with us. We'll get you out. I'm not going near those things. You won't have to. But staying here alone isn't surviving. It's waiting to die. The doctor hesitated, then nodded. Survival instinct won over fear. It usually did. We moved out. Dr. Whitmore fell into the middle of the formation, between Alice and Spence. The two amnesiacs didn't seem to notice her, too lost in their own fragmentary recoveries. The armory was 2 corridors ahead. My senses tracked movement throughout the facility, scattered zombies wandering aimlessly, drawn by sounds they couldn't quite locate. None close enough to threaten our immediate path. JD stumbled. It was a small thing, a foot catching on uneven flooring, a moment of imbalance quickly corrected. But I'd been watching JD since we entered the hive. The man was precise. Controlled. He didn't stumble. You okay? Rain asked. Fine. Floor's uneven. He rolled his shoulder, wincing. Caught myself weird. But his face was pale. Sweat beaded at his temples despite the facility's cold air. And my senses caught something, a fluctuation in his signature. Nothing definitive, but wrong. Subtly, persistently wrong. The Queen's voice, sensor analysis suggests subject Salinas has suffered T-virus exposure. Infection probability, 82%. Estimated time to full reanimation, 47 minutes. My stomach dropped. JD was bitten. Somewhere in the fighting, maybe when I wasn't looking, maybe during a moment I'd missed, the virus had found him. The armory is ahead, Kaplan announced. 20 meters. I filed J.D's condition away. Nothing I could do now. Nothing that wouldn't cause a crisis we couldn't afford. But I kept him in my awareness, tracking the wrongness in his signature as we approached the weapons cache. The armory door was reinforced steel, designed to survive biological incidents. Kaplan worked the access panel while the rest of us formed a defensive perimeter. Harrison. One's voice was quiet, meant for me alone. Your radio was transmitting on a secondary channel. Who were you talking to? The Queen. She's monitoring our progress. And you didn't think to mention that. She's giving us tactical updates. Route information. Nothing that helps if I say it out loud. I met his eyes. I'm not keeping secrets that matter to survival. You're keeping secrets. Everyone is. One held my gaze for a long moment. Then he turned away, checking his weapon. Just make sure her tactical updates keep us alive. We'll sort out the rest later. The armory door slid open. Inside, racks of weapons gleamed under emergency lighting. Ammunition cases. Tactical gear. Everything a corporate security division needed to fight wars the public would never know about. 5 minutes, one ordered. Full resupply. Then we move on the liquors. The team spread out, gathering weapons and ammunition. I grabbed magazines for my Beretta, a shotgun with a folding stock, shells to feed it. Rain selected a fresh MP5 and enough magazines to fight a small war. JD moved to a weapons rack and started loading ammunition with hands that trembled almost imperceptibly. 46 minutes. That's how long he had left. I didn't say anything. Just watched and waited and hoped the math would work out differently than I feared.